we're going to apply some of the trig that we've learnt now. We're going to apply this to a bearings question, and we're going to recap some of the key facts we need to know about bearings. First of all, let's read this question. A person leaves point S and walks 15 kilometres on a bearing of 110 degrees to point P. From P, they walk 8 kilometres on a bearing of 230 degrees to point Q. Find the distance of Q from the starting point S. Find the bearing from Q to S. Okay, so that's a lot of information. So let's put that into a sketch. So it says, first of all, that the person leaves S on a bearing of 110 degrees and walks 15 kilometres. Call that point P. 15. Okay, from P, they walk 8 kilometres on a bearing of 230 degrees to point Q. Find the distance from Q to the starting point S. Straight distance, sorry. So we need to find that distance there. Okay. So whenever we're doing bearings, we should draw on our north lines. All angles are measured clockwise from north. So let's add those on. Another bit of advice is to also add in the south lines. These aren't always needed, but they can help you spot that you now have pairs of parallel lines. That can make finding angles much, much easier. Okay, so let's put in the angles that we know, the bearings, 110, and then remembering clockwise from north, we know that angle there is 230 degrees. Okay, we need to find this distance x. We can already see that it's formed a triangle. Knowing that we have a triangle here, we know that we're going to need to use either the sine or cosine rule, as it's almost certainly not right angled. We certainly don't know that it is right angled. Okay, so we need to find an angle somewhere. We're asked for this angle here later on in the question, so we won't know that yet. Similarly, we don't know this angle. We do have some information about this angle here, so it's probably a good idea to look for this angle in the triangle. We know this angle here is 110, which, if we remember our parallel lines rules from GCSE, means that this angle here will also be 110. Okay, those two obtuse angles will equal each other. And as we know we have a straight line here, that's 230, meaning this bit here is 180. The remainder will be 50, meaning that this angle is 60 degrees. Okay, so now we know this angle, we can access a problem. We have a cosine rule. We want to know the side opposite, and we know two other sides and one angle. So you can see how putting in the south lines made the parallel lines much more obvious and helped us calculate that angle. You only really usually put north lines into bearings questions. I would strongly recommend also using south lines. Okay, so now let's set about this. We can see it's the cosine rule, so we're going to have x squared is equal to 15 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 8 times 15 cos 60. I happen to know that cos 60 is a nice angle. It's actually a half. Cos of 60 is a half. So we're going to have 15 squared plus 8 squared minus, I could put in the 2 and times by all this, but as I know cos 60 is a half, I'm just going to cancel that with the 2. And that gives me an answer of 169. So I now know that x squared is 169. Square root of 169 is 13. Okay, so we know that that length there is 13. We should put our units in. It was in kilometres. Okay, so we've accessed this question using parallel lines rules. Now if we just quickly remind ourselves of the final part of the question, find the bearing from Q to S. So we need to find the bearing from Q to S. remember clockwise from north. That angle is going to be quite tricky to find. It will probably be easier to find one of the other angles, such as this one. So what I'm going to do, to find this angle here, I'm going to use the sine rule. And in fact, I'm probably going to find this angle. Okay, the reason that I'm finding that angle is, again, once I've got a south line in, once I know this angle, I will also know by extending this. So that will tell me this angle here. I can get that remaining angle. So you'll need to use lots of parallel lines rules. Let's just clear the work we've done so far. So how am I going to find this angle now? Now that I know one angle and all three sides, it's usually easier to use the sine rule. So we're going to say that sine, let's call it theta, is equal to sine theta, sine 60, over, and then they're over the opposite sides. So sine theta over 8, sine 60 over 13, cross multiplying again, just moving up here a little bit, theta is equal to inverse sine of all of that. Gives us 32.2 degrees. That is 32 plus the 110. So now if we want to know this, that is 180 minus the 32 minus the 110 we already knew. .8. That's that angle there. So 360 minus that gives us this angle. I could have just added 180 to those two to also find this bearing. But we've answered the question. 322.2 degrees to go from Q back to S.